Is this the most shocking political plot twist you'll see all year? For months, President Donald Trump and New York City's socialist mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani, traded the kind of brutal insults that would make a cage fighter blush. One called the other a communist lunatic and threatened to lock him up. The other proudly branded himself Donald Trump's worst nightmare. But when these two rivals finally met in the Oval Office, the explosion everyone expected never happened. What did happen was a bizarre, almost unholy alliance that left the political world asking, what the DMN just went down? To understand the shock, you have to rewind. Mamdani, a self-described democratic socialist, the first Muslim, first South Asian, and youngest mayor-elect in New York's history, campaigned on a fiercely progressive platform: rent freezes, city-run grocery stores, and taxing the wealthy to fund universal childcare. Trump, of course, launched a sustained explosive attack on the young mayor-elect, calling him radical left and warning that the city would descend into a complete and total economic and social disaster under his rule. He even openly threatened to withhold crucial federal funding from the city, using the nation's financial power as a weapon in a local election. It was a vicious political war with no holds barred. But that was only the beginning. Mamdani didn't just win, he punched back. In his victory speech, he looked directly into the camera with a defiance that sent shivers down the spine of the establishment, declaring to the president, "To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us." The message was clear: the progressive base of New York would stand firm against the White House. He was supposed to be the defiant New York populist, the progressive warrior ready for 4 years of combat. So why did this notorious figure suddenly call the White House and ask for a meeting? This is where the story gets surprising. Mamdani knew a hard truth: principle is great, but governing requires cold, hard cash. New York City relies on federal funding for everything from transit to housing assistance. The mayor-elect, who built his entire campaign on the city's crushing cost of living crisis, needed White House cooperation to actually deliver on his promises of lower rents and cheaper groceries. He successfully reframed the entire explosive encounter around one shared word: affordability. He focused on kitchen table economics, groceries, utilities, rent, the very pain points that also fueled Trump's own base. Suddenly, the ideological chasm didn't seem quite so wide, and what happened next shocked everyone. When the press entered the Oval Office, ready for a fireworks display, they found an entirely different scene. Trump, notorious for his hostile meetings, was practically glazing the democratic socialist. He called Mamdani a very rational person, praised his vision, and said they agreed on a lot more than I would have thought. He even went as far as to say he'd be comfortable living in New York under a Mamdani administration, a complete 180-degree reversal of his prior threats. This wasn't just a truce, it was a public embrace. The two political opposites were suddenly bonding over a shared love for the city they were fighting over just weeks prior. But the spectacle was hiding a deeply awkward moment. The tension, of course, was still simmering just below the surface. A reporter, trying to break the strange congeniality, asked Mamdani, point blank, if he still stood by his campaign remark that Trump was a fascist. Before the mayor-elect could even fully respond, Trump cut in, completely diffusing the situation with a joke. He told Mamdani, "That's okay, you can just say yes. It's easier." Mamdani, with a slight smile and a nod, obliged. It was an astonishing display of political showmanship. Trump essentially giving permission to be called a fascist just to maintain the illusion of cooperation. It showed who truly held the leverage in that room and what Mamdani was willing to swallow to get the city what it needed. However, the real controversy wasn't inside the room. The fallout from the meeting was immediate and explosive, not for Mamdani, but for the president's own party. Right-wing loyalists who had spent months denouncing the mayor-elect were furious at the sudden surrender. Reports quickly emerged, suggesting that the president's surprising warmth toward the Democratic Socialist had played a role in the abrupt resignation of Republican firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene. Rumors suggested that the president's sudden U-turn on his vicious attacks was the final straw in a separate political conflict. This Oval Office plot twist didn't just mark an unlikely alliance, it became a catalyst for a major fracture within the conservative movement. Ultimately, what this dramatic meeting exposed wasn't a sudden conversion to a new ideology, but a chilling truth about modern American politics. Economics can trump ideology. Mamdani's focus on the working class, his fight against high rent and food prices, struck a chord with a subset of voters, even those who also supported Trump. The president, ever the pragmatist, saw the populist overlap in their base and decided that the political optics of cooperation, even with his supposed worst nightmare, was better than the optics of endless hostility. So, the question remains, was this a genuine handshake between two New Yorkers who loved their city, or was it a cold, calculated transaction? Did the progressive warrior sacrifice his principles for political gain? Or did he pull off the ultimate coup by forcing the president to validate his working class agenda? The shocking truth is, we won't know until the federal checks start clearing or don't. Tell us in the comments, do you think this buddy-buddy alliance will last until January?